Have you ever felt like you're doing everything in engineering correctly, but you still seem to be struggling? And what if the rules are actually holding you back? Today in this video, I'm going to go over the top 5 biggest lies that I personally have experienced in my software engineering career. And if you're new here, I've been a software engineer for over a decade. And then I asked the exact same question over on Threads. So stick around for the end of this video because we're going to go through the lies that you all found, and I'll review them and kind of give you my take on them. So let's dive in. The first lie based off of my experience is that more code equals more productivity. Look, speaking from my personal experience, the best engineers, literally every single time that I've ever worked with, don't write the most amount of code. They write the least amount of code. And I don't think that is by mistake, you see, because the best engineers, they bring a lot of knowledge and experience on what frameworks and libraries and toolkits that they can use instead of trying to write everything from scratch. And if you've been close to management or part of management, I'm sure some boss somewhere has asked you to calculate the lines of code across your project because your company is directly correlating the quantity of lines of code is how productive and efficient and beautiful the software engineering teams are actually being. And this is, quite frankly, absolutely ridiculous because I think it is deeply flawed that your value and the value you see in your development team is completely based off the lines of code they write. I could write the same functionality in 400,000 lines of code that I could in 20, right? I can add a lot of bloat and bullshit and opportunity for more bugs to increase, but that doesn't mean that it is more value. In my opinion, and based on my experience, the best solutions offer the most minimal amount of readable code. And I'm not going full minimalist saying like everything needs to be on a single line. Like, don't take it so seriously. It is not that deep. But in reality, it is something that uses frameworks, that uses tools. Doesn't necessarily chase every shiny new toy, but it does not include tons and tons and tons of just bullshit code. And if you're working at a company where they really put severe emphasis on the lines of code that you write, and that is what they bring to the stakeholders and partners and all of those things, I'd encourage you to work with your managers to find another metric that they can actually read and use and adjust to. You see, real productivity is about delivering value. It's by releasing the new feature, not with the most amount of lines of code, not with the least amount of lines of code, but in Three Little Bears style, the right amount of lines of code. Lie number 2 is that no-code solutions are going to replace engineers. I can't count the amount of times that my friends who are freelancers have spoken to me or described the project, and it has all been because a company has tried and embedded themselves in a no-code solution, only for that shit to fail like 6 months down the road. And I get it. It seems so simple and so sexy, and the CEO of a company can go and build new things and release products and make money. And that's probably where you should start. But I would remind everyone that it is only meant for MVPs unless you're trying to use something super awesome like Zapier. That is a no-code solution that I'd actually stand behind. But for every website builder and all of the things you want, just know what you're getting yourself into. The limitations, the standards, what you can and cannot do, what you can do on free plans versus on premium plans. And just know that the moment you try to get out of that little box that you're in, it's going to start costing you money. And one of the biggest issues I see with these companies is they do deploy something and it works for a while, but then it doesn't maintain well or it doesn't scale well. But quite frankly, they're up shit's creek. And then what do? They have to call a freelancer or a contractor or somebody to come and fix and rescue this code and maybe even start all the way over just because it is no longer maintainable or scalable. And don't get me wrong, no-code solutions are great. They're really useful tools. They're really wonderful to go and get started fast, but just know what you're getting yourself into. Lie number 3, and one that is so true to my heart, is that software estimates are accurate. I think one of the metrics that is so interesting to look at these days is that how most software projects run over schedule and over budget. And I think the industry's dirty secret here is even experts, staff level engineers at Google, whatever you may be, even the experts still have a hard time actually estimating what a software project is really going to take. For example, there's a lot of companies where they have some magic number. For my boss, it was 2.2, but they have some magic number or like a multiply by 3 rule that whatever estimate the development team provides, the manager should just multiply it by 3. And that is roughly where the real estimate is. And it kind of works, actually. In my experience, it is something that I think a lot of developers genuinely struggle with. And it's not because that they're bad at their jobs, but it's because of customer churn, customer changing their minds, weird issues with the technical stack that they're in, little unknowns and gotchas. And I think a lot of folks have problems with nickeling and diming themselves, and it does run them over scope and over budget. And I get it. This is a challenging problem for project managers too, because generally those are the people that have to go and talk to stakeholders and let the customer who is paying the money know roughly how long this is going to take. So this is a double-edged sword, and I don't think our community, the engineering field, has really figured this one out that well. Lie number 4 is that good code doesn't need documentation. I hate this one. I will stand and die on the hill alone if I have to, if you come and tell me that, oh, if I write human readable code that's straight and clear and beautiful, it doesn't need documentation. The code should document itself. Bullshit. Like, unless you're the only one working on that product, like, bullshit. Imagine the scenario where some developer, your senior engineer, has amazing, beautiful to read code, and they're like, wow, I don't need documentation because it's so awesome. And then they quit the company. And then Susan goes in there and Susan says, wow, this is actually some hot garbage. I know I saw it in some code reviews, but I look good to me anyways and stamp that shit. Uh-oh. Now I have to maintain it. And look, documentation isn't just about comments. It's design decisions. It's architecture decisions. All of the onesie-twosie kinds of water cooler conversations that us developers have, or Slack messages that we keep and just know in context. All of those things should be documented. They should be archived in your repository so that when you onboard new developers, they have a much more seamless time. They ask significantly less questions, and it actually empowers them to want to dive in and learn the product. And if you're still not convinced, look at this one additional perspective. Think about all of your favorite tools or libraries or frameworks to use. Expo, React, whatever it may be. I'm willing to bet that their documentation is amazing and it's super thorough and you love it and you praise like, wow, what a good tool this is. And it sounds like that good documentation is a litmus test for how good something is. So look at your product now. How's your documentation? How good is your product? So like I said, I will die on the hill alone if I have to, but I'm a firm believer that documentation is a first-class citizen, and it should be incredibly valued and incredibly important on your project. But now let's move on to lie number 5. Lie number 5 has a few different ways to say it, but ultimately it comes down to this. We'll have that feature done before we launch. I am sure, like me, you've been in a meeting where a boss or an engineer lead or somebody has said, yeah, we'll totally have that done before we launch. And you know damn well that they are blowing smoke right out of their ass, and you will not have that feature done before launch unless they're gonna hire like 6 more amazing engineers all of a sudden and just knock it out of the park. And I'm sure some of you have been on the team where those claims were made and your manager did try to hold you to that standard of like, nope, this thing has to go out before launch. So then you rush and you burn the midnight oil and you get it out the door. And then what happens? Oh, it breaks 2 weeks later. It breaks a month later. Shit broke and it didn't even work when we deployed it. I think we've all been there. And I think it's just kind of something in our engineering community that we should push back against. Not saying we can't add value to our customers. Ultimately, that's our goal. We love building, we love creating, and we want to provide tools and features that our customers need, love, and enjoy. But if we continue to gaslight our community on how quickly we can get things done with or without AI, I think we're just gonna make our community worse and worse and less trusted. And this one can be a tricky balance. You wanna be realistic, but you don't wanna set crazy false expectations, but you need to keep your foot on the gas. This isn't something that you just wanna be lackadaisical on, because you do need to keep pressure up, but a healthy pressure. So those are my 5 biggest lies that I've experienced in the software engineering field, and I would love to hear more of y'all's. So drop a comment down below and let me know, what have you experienced? What have you worked through? What have you struggled through? But now we're gonna dive into some of my thread responses, because low-key, some of these were really, really funny. The first one here is from Dave, and Dave says, the entire Agile manifesto. And I'm not gonna lie, I laughed about this one because I have a love-hate for Agile. I love being able to break things down in 2-week increments, but I know it is a lot of overhead, and honestly, I probably spend more weeks making Jira tickets than I do actually engineering or doing real work. And yeah, I think there's some bosses who swear by Agile and that saved their whole company, and then there's some others who say it's just an excuse for developers to slip things every 2 weeks. So yep, Dave, I agree. Agile manifesto, probably a lie. And sorry to all my Scrum Masters out there. Lydia says story point estimation. So it sounds like Lydia and Dave are secretly best friends and they don't know it, because yeah, story point estimations, I don't even use them anymore. I know it is against Agile to not use story points, but I'm not gonna lie, I only use time. Stuart here says temporary fix, and I laughed and I totally freaking agree. This is one of the biggest lies, if not the biggest, in the software engineering field, because there's no such thing as a temporary fix. I'm willing to guarantee that every engineer still watching this video, you have either are on or have been a part of a team where within the first few days you noticed a PR comment, code comment, whatever it may be, of to-do or temporary fix, where somebody says, yeah, we'll fix this next sprint. Bullshit, because I'm willing to bet 6, 7, 8, 12 months from now, yeah, it's still there. It's not temporary. Clearly, it was a permanent fix, because if it works on your machine, works on my machine, and the customer isn't complaining, well, ship it. And it is now here for life. So there you have it. That is my 5 top biggest lies in the software engineering field based off my experiences, and then a handful of them from you all in the community here on Threads. So if you have other ones that you'd love to shout out, drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you resonated with this, if you had a laugh from this, or if you got any value out of this, I would love if you hit the thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. I would be honored, and I'm here every single Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that, I'll see you all next week. Peace.